And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mr. and Mrs. Friendly Ex-Muslim. How are you doing today, Huda?
I'm doing good.
Excellent, excellent. So today we have a jam-packed show. We have Muhammad Ali, aka Muhammad Lantern, talking to some non-Muslim students about the miracles of the Quran and the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad. All right, so we're just going to jump right in because we don't have a lot of time. Let's just get into it. Alrighty, I'm going to just play the video and let's just watch and see how this goes.
Do we agree right now that according to the consensus of scientists today, cosmologists, the universe has a starting point? You call it the Big Bang, right? That's the reference. We agree with that, right? So the Big Bang is what? Is energy and matter compressed into a singularity, a very small thing, and then expands very quickly into the universe that we have today. Now the question is, where does the energy and matter come from? What causes it to compress and afterwards expand it to the way it is right now?
I've heard of the Big Rip.
So what causes that?
Not sure.
Allah causes it.
Allah. Oh, great.
I want to actually talk about Big Bang. Let me see if I can find it. I should have prepared for this. So there's a hadith that says that, let's see if I can find it, that Allah was over the surface of the water and then he commanded everything to be built. Okay, so Allah's throne. Here we go. I think I found it. Okay, here we go. So this is apparently what was happening. So I'm going to share this tab instead. Allah's throne had been upon water, right? We learn from Surah Hud that it is He who created the heavens and earth in 6 days, and His throne had been on water.
Mm.
Does this sound like Big Bang to you?
Nope. Not one bit.
It's like, and then He might test you which of you is best indeed, but if you say indeed you are resurrected after death, those who disbelieve will surely say, this is not but obvious magic. This is kind of weird. So the disbelievers are saying this is magic because He's saying they're going to be resurrected after death. First of all, I don't even know if I buy that, but because that just sounds like I believe the other ones that says, these are tales of the ancients and whatever. That makes sense. But why would they call this magic? Like, where's the magic? He's just making a claim. But anyways, let's just take it at face value. Muhammad Ali, Muslim Lantern, is saying that the Quran affirms a Big Bang. The reality is very different, right? Now, let's try to understand what this might mean, right?
Yeah.
Ancient people would have been looking at the ocean, right? And when they look at the ocean, what do they see? You see this vast, let me open up this image. This is a beautiful image of the ocean. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Open image and new tab. Oh, it's not letting me do that. So basically just visualize, I'll just open up this screen. Just visualize what it might look like to an ancient person. They look out at the water and it's like endless water. It goes on and on and on and on. Now, to an ancient human being, it might seem like this is limitless, that this is like an eternal thing, the ocean, and then Allah's throne is on the ocean. Makes perfect sense, right? I mean, to a 7th century individual, heck, that seems like a logical idea, like the ocean's forever and God's throne is over there somewhere. We can't see God's throne, right? How would God's throne be over the water if this is like the beginning of the creation of the universe? It doesn't make any sense. We don't see Allah's throne on the water. And frankly speaking, this whole worldview doesn't make any sense because it doesn't fit, right? What reality looks like. So if you look at reality here, right? Okay, most of the earth is water
And round.
and round. Exactly. And round. It's not flat, right? It's not a limitless plane that's flat that has like unlimited water. Like Muhammad never went on a boat. He didn't know that there's like other land on the other side, and if you keep going, eventually you come back to where you started from. The whole Quranic worldview is so flawed, but he's trying to say like, oh, this is a Big Bang. But anyways, let's give him a chance. Do you want to add anything, or should we continue?
Let's continue.
Okay.
But do you agree? Yeah. So, but the question is this: you saying you're not sure, you're saying you're not sure. Can any human being do something like this?
No.
What kind of power do you require to compress a universe into a decimal singularity and then expand it? You require power.
Allah.
You probably require power we cannot even comprehend, right? We cannot even understand. So we say that is what the Creator is. The Creator has what we say all power. So the universe
Did you want to say something? You unmuted.
No, I'm good. Keep
Okay.
going.
is full of atoms. Every atom, if you split it, that's how you have a nuclear explosion. So much energy in the universe. So whatever brought that singularity of the Big Bang into
Ya
existence.
Allah, Muslims talking about nuclear explosions. Not good. Talking about Big Bang.
Ha ha ha.
No. Don't talk about explosions. We don't want any more Allahu Akbar explosions. Only the Big Bang.
Has power we cannot even comprehend as human beings. Also knowledge. The universe has laws, magnetic waves, we have laws of gravity, laws of physics, all of these laws that we have.
I'm just going to pause there. Okay. So we have all of these laws in the universe. And then we have Allah that says he created the earth and the heavens in 6 days.
Yeah.
Do they not see that, like, I'm willing to grant him, let's just grant him there's a God. This God seems that whoever this God is doesn't seem to understand basic, like the basic universe. I mean, we have children today that understand the universe better than Allah.
Well, you know what? You know what these guys tend to do? It's kind of like yesterday with Ali Dawa and, research on women and outcomes and things like that. Like these guys, like all of the scientists, researchers, all those people do all the hard work discovering this stuff, writing books, everything like that. And then they just try to find a way to fit that into the Islamic narrative and say, oh, look at Muhammad. Look at,
Yeah.
Allah, look at, they knew all this. And it's like, no, they didn't.
Yeah, I am amazed by the universe. I'm amazed by the order in the universe. I'm amazed by the regularity, you can call it that. But Allah, come on. Like, really? This guy that, apparently the sun goes below his throne every day until he says, yeah, you can go now. And then it comes back. The same Allah that apparently doesn't know about time zones. The
And
same Allah
stars are missiles for devils.
that... Yeah, exactly. As Voyager, they shout to Voyager again, Islam is an insult to all the scientists out there. Yeah, exactly.
I studied it. Okay, perfect. So all of these laws that we have are so intricate and so detailed, require by definition a lawmaker, the person who brought the universe into existence. So it requires energy and knowledge, cannot even comprehend, right? It's not bound by time, space, continuum. The universe, we are bound by present, past, future, etc. We are in that system of time, space, continuum, bound by this space. Yeah, but whoever creates the universe is eternal by definition. It created time, created space, created everything that we are in. So we have something eternal, powerful in a way we cannot comprehend, knowledgeable in a way we cannot comprehend, brings the universe into existence. What do people call that? God. That's it. So I'm saying it's not a point of maybe or a belief. No, it's a point if there is no universe, if there is no God. Because nothing else can bring the universe into existence, can compress the Big Bang, expand it or whatever. You require attributes of God by definition to do that. If you don't have those attributes, you cannot bring the universe into existence.
It's true. I think most scientists, there's like a bell curve, right? It's like maybe you believe in God and then you study science and you think that it rejects God, and then you study it even more and you realize that
Yes. That is the thing. A shallow knowledge. It's a very important point. Shallow knowledge of science can lead you to rejecting the Creator. That's a very interesting point.
You know what I was just thinking?
This modern scientific method that is being used today is developed by.
Islam is so unscientific that they have even like Ali Dawa and all of them say like the scientific miracles have been debunked. That's how unscientific Islam is.
Yeah, and there's actually a comment here. Rebecca Borg says that in a video from years ago, he used to say that the Earth is egg-shaped, and this word daha means eggs and all that. The thing is, I'm trying to find the link that actually responds to this. There's actually a very good debunking of this. But we'll continue for now because I can't find it. But yeah, there's this old claim. These old claims are so weak now. What he's making, the argument he's making is he hasn't gotten to the whole scientific miracles just yet,
Yeah.
but he's making an argument from, wonderment or design or something like that, saying, but then again, it's an old switcheroo that they did yesterday too. There's a chasm. It's like that lawyer girl was saying, I don't care if God exists. I care about the religion, right? Let's talk about the religion. But he's like, no,
True.
I want to prove that God exists. They have this, they think if you prove God exists, therefore Islam. But there's this huge gap that has to be jumped before you can get from one to the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Muslim, by the way. Hassan ibn al-Haytham in Andalusia in Spain. He has
Muslim golden age.
Yes. He wrote the book called Optics, is how we use this modern scientific method, which is studying the physical world through experimentation, repeatability, and falsification. This method has been developed by Muslims, right? So we understood, unlike the age of Christianity, for example, where they were like, okay, science equals witchcraft, so we're going to burn the witches or whatever. There was this conflict between God and science. We didn't have that in Islam. Islam, we already...
Okay, I don't know enough about the history to actually debunk what he's saying here, but I have a feeling that he is actually misrepresenting history. Muslims do have laws against witches too. Saudi kills witches, right? Like Saudi Arabia, witch execution. I can find it right now. It won't take me long, right?
Well, there's the Salem witch trials too. There's that.
Yeah, but he's saying Muslims don't do that.
Oh.
He's saying Muslims specifically are different, right?
That's a lie.
He's saying, Muslims are very pro-science. Islam is very pro-science.
Oh.
The fact is that that's not true. There is a lot of superstition, nonsense. I mean, I could find another example. I mean, there's so many examples, but in terms of history itself, I wish I knew more. I could actually talk about this, because the fact is, you know what? I have a good example of how I can debunk this, right? There was his name was, do I have it bookmarked? He's one of the scientists that was in Pakistan. And he spoke about how there's this in Pakistan and in many Muslim countries, science is looked down upon because of superstition, because of the fact that, certain evolution is haram or something, right? And unfortunately, I don't have the reference here. But anyways, if Islam was really pro-science, a lot more Muslims would leave Islam, right?
Yeah. So, you know what? I would argue that psychology, that is a science, right? It's the study of the mind, and they do ruqyas for mental health related, somebody will have schizophrenia or whatever. You read those stories too, and they do ruqyas. Like, that's obviously so far from being scientific and understanding how people work.
Yeah. Okay, so I found out what I was looking for. His name is Professor Pervez Hoodboy. He's a Pakistani nuclear scientist, and he actually wrote, nuclear physicist rather. He actually wrote about this problem in Pakistan specifically, about freedom of speech, scientific temper, and education, right? Some people accused him of treason and unbelief, right? And he's struggled with this, right? So he's actually struggled because he's actually pro-science and writing about science. Let me see if I can find the actual article he wrote about. It was a beautiful article he wrote where he said basically that Islam shouldn't hold back science. Like, he's trying to make it work, right? Unfortunately, like, Islam did ancient science brilliantly, but today's Muslims lag behind. To catch up, they must demand the freedom to question, right? The question, can Islam be reconciled with science? So he's admitting ancient Muslims did science, but today it's not going that well, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I would think too, any explanation for the Big Bang and claiming that Allah, is the one who made this happen, wouldn't it be way more descriptive? It should be extremely descriptive, something like this, not vague and open to interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah. So the connecting the Quran to science is very, very foolish. But also claiming Muslims did science, that's true. Muslims did science. Claiming Christians didn't do science, I don't think that's fair, to be honest. But we'll let that go. We'll continue.
Had no issues with science. Science flourished under the Islamic Empire. Why? Because the Quran has so much information that surpasses its time. For example, you look at this cloud, does it look heavy or light? to you.
It looks
It's
like
like, I don't know, imagine you're in the desert, you're looking at this cloud 1,400 years ago. Prophet Muhammad was 1,400 years ago. It says very light. The Quran describes the cloud as heavy. Allah,
true.
exactly,
Water, heavier than air. Yeah.
exactly.
He's going down this foolish path of Quran proves science, scientific miracles. This is gonna like he didn't get the memo.
Yeah, he
Get,
didn't.
he didn't
He
get the
didn't.
memo
He's a
that
little late.
Ali Dawa, Yasser Qadi, Hamza Soitis, they're all saying stop trying to say scientific miracles.
Didn't
right?
Hamza sort of have a book too about embryology, and he like kind of is trying to shy away from even talking about that now
Mm-hmm.
because he knows that it's all nonsense.
Yeah, like let's talk about Quran, right? I mean, the Quran, he said Quran, I don't know which verse of the Quran he's talking about, but apparently not only does the clouds send rain, but apparently back in the day it sent down manna and quails. So God sent like animals from heaven for the Israelites to eat or something. I don't know. This is the Quran that he's claiming is scientific, right? And even if you want to like we want to talk about like, oh, this Quran is so amazing. It talks about water. It's heavy with water. Like, is that really like miraculous?
Yeah.
It's like, bro, there's water coming from the sky. The cloud is heavy. Like, is that like a revelation? This is the low bar of like scientific miracle. It's like,
Yeah.
the clouds, they were heavy. How could he have known that?
You know what, too?
Yeah.
I mean, that again, I would attribute that to just his observation, his 7th century observation.
7th century observation, and also literally just being poetic. The
Yeah.
clouds are heavy. Like, that's probably what he was doing.
Yeah.
Not trying to prove some miracle, like he had some special knowledge. And in fact, the non-Muslims never took it that way either. They weren't like, oh, he knows the clouds are heavy, we must become Muslim. Like, that's not what was happening, right? It was
Yeah.
more like you become Muslim.
This is just another example of taking something that you read in the Quran and you're just stretching it to fit into what narrative you want it to be, aka a scientific one.
Yeah. Edward is saying, if Quran did provide advanced science, then why are these things being discovered by non-Muslims and not Muslims and Muslims too, who have been reading the damn book for centuries? That's true as well. Like, you have this book that should, I mean, who needs science at the end of the day? All you need is a Quran. Just read the Quran, get all your like data from there, and then therefore apply it to the world. But that's not how it works.
Yeah.
We know how that is not how it works. And even if you read the Quran, apparently like the thunder is to scare the disbelievers. Like, come on, get it right, scientists.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nah, I'm saying like this is what the Quran's saying. It's still like scare the disbeliever. Oh my God, there's rain, the thunder. Oh, I'm scared. Right.
We also have a video about the eclipse. Muhammad was scared of the eclipse, right? And he told Muslims to go pray.
Yes.
He didn't understand what these things meant back then.
Yeah. And in fact, the prayer for the eclipse is called the prayer of fear, the prayer of being scared.
Right. You're supposed to be scared, go in your house and pray until it's over, right?
Yeah, exactly. The sun and the moon are 2 signs of Allah, by means of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mighty and sublime, strikes fear into his slaves. They do not become the eclipse for the death or birth of anyone. If you see that, then pray until Allah relieves you of fear. So basically, like the Day of Judgment's coming. Look, the sun went black. This is the knowledge of the time, right? This is what Muhammad uses. Everything in the Quran is always about scaring disbelievers and basically Allah is this like big frightening monster that's like out to get you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how he gained control over his population.
He needed control. So in order to control, you needed to instill fear.
Exactly. Cult 101. How to run a cult 101.
tons, they weigh tons. And the Quran says, and he fashions heavy clouds, right? The Quran surpasses the knowledge of human beings at that time and today. Quran talks about embryology, the baby in the mother's
Oh
womb.
no.
The stages
Oh,
of embryology,
no.
development of the human being, of the embryo is mentioned in the Quran. Professor Keith Moore, who's a Christian embryologist, he died, and he died as a Christian, but he said the knowledge here is what I see with a microscope is what the Quran is saying. And then he said this could not have come from anyone except God. Like they didn't have microscopes 1,400 years ago, couldn't have seen this. Quran talks about the expansion of the universe, talks about how Allah created the universe with power and we are expanding it. Talks about
Okay,
now.
he's going very fast. I'm just going to quickly share a couple of things which are very, very stupid. And this whole embryology thing is actually pathetic. I'm very disappointed that he's bringing this up, and he should have known better. This is one of the things that actually took me completely out of Islam, the embryology claim. And this is why they say stop saying these things, guys.
Yeah.
Stop saying these things. I was completely and utterly convinced by this article. This article very, very strongly demonstrates that the Quranic embryology is not just made up out of nowhere. It's coming from a very specific place. It's coming from 7th century Greek Galenic medicine. And when I read this, I was like, kind of like, oh my God, it's the same thing. It's too similar for this to just be like a coincidence. And of course it's wrong. Okay, come on. 7th century, it was like wrong. It's not like accurate. Like it gets things wrong. It gets the order wrong. It says that it's the bones first and then the flesh, right? I'm trying to find the image. I don't have the image handy, but I do have this tweet that I made that I can show basically where the order of operations of a Quranic embryology is totally wrong, right? It says first bones, then flesh. Right? This is 7th century science. You can't use this to prove God, like your book. If you do, you actually make a mistake. They always, and the other thing too is they always quote the same one guy, Keith Moore. Why is it only one guy? There's only one guy. There's literally only one guy. And you know what? He was invited to Saudi Arabia and he was paid money to speak about Quran and science. And he has even a book. This guy became the face of Dawah. And the fact that they keep mentioning Keith Moore in 2025, the guy's dead. That's the only guy that can mention. That's a red flag. This is kind of like the anti-vaxxers. They always mention two names. Dr. Tenpenny and who's the other one? I forget, but there's two names. Mercola. There's the two names they mention over and over again. They don't have anybody else.
I remember when you told me about this, Keith Moore, and I remember this conversation that we had
100 years ago.
They didn't have microscopes, but they did have abilities to cut open animals and see, like they could.
And people had miscarriages too. So at many different stages of their pregnancy. So, they're probably able to observe this over time, right?
The bar is so low for these people. It's just like everything is a miracle. There were people that wrote much better things about embryology. Like even, for example,
Aristotle?
Exactly. Aristotle. But apparently, and these people didn't try to make everything into a miracle. It was like, that's just science. They're just like figuring out things. They're like discovering. That's what human knowledge is. You build off of previous knowledge and you build on top of that and you build on top of that. But in this case, it's just like everything is being used to prove this like medieval god of theirs. It's like, no, this is not this is not true.
Couldn't have seen this. Quran talks about the expansion of the universe. Talks about how Allah created the universe with power and we are expanding it. Talks about now actively in the earth. The Quran talks about the shape of the earth. How
this is another lie, right? The Quran talks about wait 1 second. He said it says the universe is expanding, right? There is a word that's being used. Let me see if I can find it. I'm searching expand universe. I'm not even finding it. Universe. It's the heavens expand. The word that's used to expand the universe is also means. Oh, here we go. I found it. 1 second. right? Okay, so I'm going to share the screen.
5147. Yeah.
Yeah, and the heaven we constructed with strength and indeed is expanded. The word motion, it either means vast or expanding. It has two different meanings. And so again, this doesn't prove anything. It has multiple meanings. Even if you want to pick one of the meanings and you say, okay, Quran got it right, most likely it's again just being poetic. It's just Muhammad being poetic. It's like, oh yeah, the Quran, we made the Quran, we made the sky big, right? Like that's what it says. It's a huge stretch to try to make this into miracle, and unfortunately, he never got the memo. But Donald Clark, thanks for the super chat.
Thank you.
Medieval Muslims hoarded Greek and Roman science. When Europe got it, the Renaissance happened, and Muslims are still in the golden age. They're still talking about golden age, right? That is true.
I was found. So a Muslim scientist or Muslim scholar had consensus that the Earth was round.
Lies.
We're talking about 800-900 years ago. Now, when everyone believed it's flat, everyone else were believing it's flat, but Muslims said no. The Quran is reflecting that the Earth uses the term yukawiru from kora, which is like a ball, round. It's a round shape, and that's why Muslim scholars had a consensus on that. The Quran talks about how everything living is made from water. Now
okay, he's going so fast. You know what he's doing? He's gish galloping. He's just bombarding them with things.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they're not going to be able to know these things, right?
Yeah.
But there were many, 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 many scholars that said the Earth was flat. And why did they think the Earth was flat? Because one, that was common knowledge in Arabia, and at that time, there were actually others that were outside of Arabia, even before Muhammad's time, that thought of the Earth as a ball, right? Like wrapped up leather. I have a quote from one of the Greek philosophers, I don't remember his name, that said the Earth is like a ball that's wrapped up, like a ball that's wrapped up with leather with multiple layers or something like that. This was, I think, before Muhammad's time, much before Muhammad's time. So he wasn't even claiming to be a prophet. This guy is lying. There's consensus that the Earth was not liar, pants on fire. Ibn Taymiyyah, right, said there was no difference of opinion that the sky is like a ball. He said similarly, unanimously agreed that the Earth with all its. Okay, so by Ibn Taymiyyah's time, they started quoting this. So this is what he's quoting. But if you go back, you will start to see. Oh, see, here we go. Ibn Hazm. So when the science caught up, they started saying this. Before the science caught up, none of the leading Muslim scholars who deserve to be called imams or leaders in knowledge denied that the Earth is round, and there's no narration from them to deny it. Okay, hold on. One second. Let me keep going. Okay, here we go. Starting back in, this is Kab al-Ahbar saying, as for the sun, it disappears in Tatan. The word ta means mud. Oh, this is going into the mud. Okay. Abdullah ibn Abbas says at the beginning of the creation, the earth was spread on a whale's back. So there are some weak hadith that say this as well, that the earth was spread, because the Quran says the earth was spread, right?
Right.
Okay. Keep going. Ibn Abbas also believed the earth set in a literal setting place on earth. Okay, there's still going. There's still more scholars here. Sun is in a spring. The spring casts it to the east. Okay, keep going. Wahab, when asked about the nature of the universe, said there are 7 earths that are flat, right? 7 flat earths that are islands. We're talking Muslim scholars here, right? And by the way, where did I get this? This is actually from a book. And one second. Which book is it? Where's the reference here? Okay, anyways, I'll keep going. Muqatil al-Sulaiman said he believes mountains surround the earth. Again, flat earth. This is how Dhul-Qarnayn is trapped, because there's mountains, right? Al-Tabari, he's the one who spread the earth.
I'm even reading Ibn Kathir. He believed that the earth was flat as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so unfortunately for them, it's hard to basically prove. It was definitely not a consensus, right? Like he was saying, it's a consensus that all the scholars said, right? All the scholars did not say that. right? All the scholars did not say that at all. I'm gonna keep going, and I don't need to lead this whole list. Oh, this is the book. I don't want to lead the whole list because there's a lot of them. Al-Talabi, the Earth is flat. Al-Baghdadi. Oh, interesting name. He said the Earth's flat. That's why he called it an expanse. There's even scholars, Salafi scholars today that are like literalists that say that if you say the Earth is round, you're kafir. So as you can see, there were some scholars that said it was like a ball, but there's also a ton of them that says that flat. There's like a really long list here, and these are Arabic references. So I'll post a link here for anyone that wants to read it. But clearly, the scholars didn't know. They didn't know what was going on. They were trying to figure it out. They thought if obviously set in a murky pool, right, which was what it seems to say, right? It seems to say that the Earth was in a murky pool, and that's what happened. And yeah, I guess that I've belabored the point enough. We can continue.
Everything living has cells, and every cell is 60 to 70% water. Without water, there's no life. That's why they're trying to find water on Mars, right? So the knowledge in this book, that's the point I'm trying to make. And the most important thing is there isn't any incorrect knowledge in this book. Everything the Quran says not only fits the reality, but surpasses the reality. You know, if you go 60 years ago, 70 years ago, they were teaching you the static state theory or whatever, before the knowledge of the Big Bang or any of that, or the current model that we have. They will tell you that the sun is static, doesn't have an orbit, it doesn't move. The Quran 1,400 years ago is telling us that the sun is moving, has its own course, it has an orbit, it's moving. So the Quran contradicted science 60 years ago, but the Quran is right and science is wrong.
Okay, so this is another example of science. I actually don't want to spend too much time on the science because this is like a dead topic. I really want to go into the so-called miracles, right? So if that's okay, I'm just gonna skip and pass. Basically, to debunk what he said about the sun being static. Yes, the Quran does say the sun goes in an orbit, but like, let's be honest. What model does that look like to those people? It's the sun and moon. The sun and moon always talks about sun and moon, sun and moon. It's clearly talking about, the model, the geocentric model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the so-called prophecies. So let's go to the prophecies. That'll be more interesting.
They happen exactly the way he said it. For example, Prophet Muhammad talked about sexual transmitted diseases. He said how in the future, near the end of times, like the times we're in right now, sexual immorality will widespread, and new STDs, new sexual transmitted diseases will come in the people because of their sexual immorality. Look at monkeypox, all of these different,
Oh, talking about monkeypox, Muhammad also said that Muslims will be turned into monkeys and pigs for listening to music, drinking alcohol, and wearing silk. So when we go back to this actual claim that he's making, that there's going to be, he also said a plague will never enter Makkah, but COVID entered Makkah. And when you look at something like this, again, Muhammad was just fear-mongering. He's saying there's going to be all these diseases, and they actually had a bunch of diseases even back then.
Listen, herpes, like genital herpes, that's like one of the oldest STDs out there. Why isn't Muhammad speaking about that? They're taking 4 wives, concubines from God knows where, sleeping with all these women. Don't you think that you should have some knowledge of this and warn your people about that? Remember that TikTok I showed you? There was a guy who said Prophet Muhammad predicted like new diseases, herpes, but he was wrong because it was around back then. It's a very old virus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and over here, all it's saying is, plagues and diseases. It doesn't say, where does it say it's because of, it doesn't say it's because of sex. It doesn't say that because you are not, and first of all, there was no protection back then, right? And so Muhammad, with all of his wives, buying and selling slaves, that's what they did. They bought and sold slaves. They captured women from other tribes, and then they divorced them and passed them on. There was clearly there was no germ theory back then, right? They didn't understand that. All he knows is there's like diseases, right? And there's lots of diseases. If this is convincing to you, I don't know. I have something to sell you.
of their sexual immorality. Look at monkeypox, all of these different.
I don't even know if we can say that they're spreading. If anything, I would say that it's actually the opposite, because now we understand about the theory of sexually transmitted diseases. We teach about using protection. We talk about like abstinence to those people that want to avoid it. Like we have all of this understanding of how these things are spread. We have antiviral medications that even if you have HIV, you can avoid spreading it to others. So I think it's the opposite.
And isn't there a monkeypox vaccine, or am I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's like the way it's describing these plagues, disease. He's talking about STDs, okay, but there's also scientists out there who are coming up with medications, cures. So it's not like it's something that's, you know, unsalvageable.
The defeating Allah's punishment. Kind of funny. I got one super chat here. Just want to say thank you, Yuan, for the $10 super chat.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The topic is a little bit off from what we're talking about, but just want to share, acknowledging that Isa comes from Greek Isuna. Isus disproves everything Muhammad preached. You can only get it from hearing Isus and misrendering. It should be Yashu. So yeah, thanks for that analysis of the, I guess, the etymology of Isa. I don't know much about that, but thank you for the super chat. And yeah, we'll continue.
There's a huge list of new STDs that comes about, right? And Prophet Muhammad was a doctor. He wasn't a doctor. He didn't have a microscope. He didn't have this information, right? He had no. Prophet Muhammad said, the deserts of Arabia.
So just to belabor that point a little bit more, he's trying to say that Muhammad taught about STDs. Like, did he ever advise? I don't remember any hadith where he said, like, he even had sex with multiple wives in a single bath.
And I'll tell you something else. Something else that you can get from having sex with multiple new partners, like let's say Muhammad with 11 wives, bacterial vaginosis.
Yeah.
That is something that you can get from having sex with a bunch of different people. And I wouldn't be surprised if back then there was cases of this. You know, I mean, the vagina is like a, you know, it's an orifice like of, you know, potential, like it's a, you can get bacterial vaginosis, yeast infections. I mean, how come we don't know about any of this? There's never any encouragement of practicing safe sex.
Yeah. There's actually the opposite. There's dipping a fly in your drink because one thing has the cure. There's a lot of very bad advice. There's a cupping. There's cupping. There was a companion that cupped, and there's a whole like giving people a bath because of evil eye. Bro thought he forgot that he had sex with his wives and he couldn't remember, and because of magic. This is the prophet that you guys are saying is like teaching people about STDs. Like, come on. He's having sex with multiple wives and having a single bath, like all sorts of like, ugh.
That's actually disgusting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. Muhammad learned about STDs from experience. Are you talking about Al Zut? The Zut story. Yeah, we forgot the Zut reference. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how strong that reference is, but
Al Zut pox.
Will come back to being meadows and rivers. If he says come back, that means what? It used to be meadows and rivers. Nature has an article called in the past green of Saudi Arabia, or the deserts of Arabia, the past greening days of Arabia, right? So Nature magazine has this article. It shows you that 5,000 years ago, it was all meadows and rivers. How do they know? You find fossils, things like, you know, whales or elephants, things that you need.
Whenever you have two possibilities, you should think about Occam's razor and what's the more likely one. There's maybe like three possibilities here. One is that Muhammad is just making this up. Like, two is that the people that lived in Arabia had stories that were passed on from previous generations about greener valleys. That's like a simple explanation for this. And the third explanation is Allah told him that there was greenery here. Like, just like Allah told him that the bones and the flesh come one after another, which is wrong.
You know what I would love to see? I'd love to see, I said this to you before, I would love to see an archaeological dig of some of these areas in Saudi Arabia. Like nobody's ever done that as far as what I understand. Like Banu
Yeah.
Qurayza, that whole mass grave is there somewhere. I would, we would get a lot more answers and understanding about the, a lot of these stories in the Hadith and the Quran if we could just do an archaeological dig. He's talking about digging up bones and stuff. I would love to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rebecca said, and the cupping only works best on the 17th, 19th, and 21st of the month. Yeah, there's some funny hadith about that. And Bilal saying, so he accepts science when it suits him, but when you talk about evolution, it's BS. Yeah, that's the crazy thing here. They pick and choose things that that suit them when they suit them. Even though he's saying, the Quran is the one that has the correct and science changes. So what he's doing is he's going to pick the science that matches. So if science changes and it goes the wrong way, then they won't talk about that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Dihya Al-Kalbi is saying, Mr. Fenix was saying, how are these jahils even allowed to preach the rubbish in the streets of Europe? I mean, that's one of the downsides of freedom of expression and religion, right? I do believe in freedom of expression and religion. I do believe that he has the right to say this crap, as long as he's not preaching violence against or hatred or, like calling for violence against a group, like, for example, the Jews or something. He's allowed to spread this crap. That's the world that we live in, and that's what freedom of, that's what liberalism's about. So that's why we have to combat these things. And I do think that I would rather a world where you have both options rather than a world where you don't have both options, and then you only have people that are able to spread what they want to spread. Like people sometimes say, well, Saudi Arabia, they don't allow, like people to there's no dissent allowed. Raif al-Badawi was thrown in jail. Christians are not allowed to preach openly. And yeah, like that's a bad thing to me. That's a bad thing. I don't think that's the world I want to live in. It's unfortunate, but we have to push back against this. Right? I mean, that's the double-edged sword of freedom of speech, right?
And unfortunately, too, Dia Al-Kalbi, these young kids, look at them. What do they know about Islam? Most likely little to nothing, right? So they're gonna sit there and what did you say? Get bamboozled. He's gonna just throw all kinds of stuff at them, one after another after another. They're not gonna have the ability to properly respond to this or challenge it like most people. And let's say I don't know, one of these guys or all these guys become Muslim. What happens a lot of the time in this dawah type of work here is that, and it happened to me, I kind of just confirmed and reaffirmed what I like wanting to convert by not looking at the other side of things, people who left the religion, right? I didn't look deeply enough into the problems. I kind of accepted what Muslims presented to me. So that's how this stuff can be effective when they preach it. It's people who are not going to question, and they're gonna just it's kind of like being hypnotized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fell for this stuff too when I was younger. So yeah. All right, let's continue.
Huge body of water and greenery for them to live. And then they use satellites. They say 10,000 Asian lakes. There's traces of them. How could Prophet Muhammad know that? He couldn't. And then he said they will come back green again. NASA has an article called The Greening of Saudi Arabia. It shows you how
Okay,
it's yellow and it's now green. How it's changing from complete yellow to complete green. Now he's saying that 1,400 years ago. So how could he have known this information? How could any human being have known this information? Right? So you study him, you look at his life.
Okay, he's done the point. I want to okay, so guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and let's keep the stream going strong. Yeah, talking about miracles and things, someone mentioned Zamzam, Rebecca again. I want to hear about the pumps being used for Zamzam water. So apparently there's this Zamzam miracle that they talk about sometimes, but little do most people don't know, it's public information, it's not like a secret, that they refill the Zamzam wells. They fill it up with water because the amount of people that are drinking from this little well is not enough to keep it flowing. So of course they need to keep the miracle or whatever. It's not a miracle, but they need to keep the Zamzam flowing because that's part of the whole mythology of Hajj. So what do? They have these giant tanks that they use to they fill up, and obviously this, I don't even know like what's left of the Zamzam, if anything. Like it's just a spiritual Disneyland of some sort, right? The thing is it's ongoing now, and most people are surprised when they hear that. Like Muslims are like, what? They refill it? Like what the heck? I thought this is all coming from some people are, they think this is like a miracle or something. It's not. But
Allah's
going
not
back,
providing.
yeah, whenever you have these miracle claims, Muhammad predicted the green lands of Arabia. Like, I wonder, like, out of those 6,000 plus hadiths or something, they have to really like go through this whole book, try to find something that fits. But that's not what's convincing to me. What's convincing is if you're consistently right, over and over again, you're consistently right. Consistently predict things accurately. Not that you go here and you find one thing here and 80% of the things you said are wrong. Yeah, it's you, if you're a true prophet, you'd get it right most of the time, not cherry picked digging through the pile, right?
Yeah.
The Prophet's mission was very simple. It's about one thing. There's a creator that created us. Now, what I've been telling you about right now, right? Creator that created us have a purpose in this life. We're being tested. Whether we'll obey the creator and do good in our life, or do evil, disobey the creator. Which one are we going to do? That is the test that we're here to do, right? To accomplish. So, how do we know what is right and wrong? That's a question I'm going to ask you guys now, since you're not following a specific religion. How do you determine what is right and wrong? What do you bring?
So according to him, all of this like miracles and prophecies and stuff, it's all because you have to follow this specific book and you have to live your life. The crazy thing is, when I hear this now, it sounds so absurd to me. Like this is what you want me to do? Like,
Yeah.
all of this was for that? Like, it just sounds so bizarre. Being free of Islam, you really start to look at this as like some crazy thing. Like when you're in it, like Ghulam Murtaza is saying, don't you cringe that you used to give dawah? Yeah. I didn't used to give dawah like on the street like that. I mean, we did a couple of booths and stuff, but I was more involved like logistically, right, with some of this stuff. And I believe Ghulam Murtaza, you were asking for a shout out earlier. You're from Pakistan, right? So there you go, you got your shout out.
Bring morality from?
Study the scripture.
Okay, but if you're not a Muslim, how do you find morality?
For personal experience, culture.
Subjective things, right?
Yeah.
So you go to a culture, something is right. You go to a different culture, something is wrong, which would mean that thing is not right or wrong.
Well, would you not agree that even within a religion, any organized religion, there are different interpretations and different moral ways of thinking?
Yes.
So you could still say that it's dependent on outside influences.
Excellent question. First, I would disagree with the term organized religion. I don't know what you would mean by it. I would actually like what you mean by that. Because right now I was trying to present that the Quran is from God. If it's from God, then it's not organized by humans, right? So it's not organized.
The word of God, whereas Christianity is the interpretations of the apostles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the actual.
That guy is not saying it right at all. He said Christianity is the interpretations of the apostles, and Islam is directly from God. That's totally wrong. I'm gonna rewind that, because now what he's doing is he's making an argument from morality. Let's go back a bit.
And the Quran is from God. If it's from God, then it's not organized by humans, right? So it's not
Islam is not organized by humans? Bro, your literal compilation of the Quran was done by humans. What do you think those 10 qirats are? Asim and Hafs and Warsh and Qalun and the Hadith. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? That's done by humans.
Humans also made mistakes, like goats ate the Quran. These people died in battle who memorized it too, right?
Yes. This whole thing is completely done by human beings, which is why I always say if Muhammad was alive today, he wouldn't recognize Islam. He maybe would recognize it, but he would be like shocked that it's different than what he was. I don't think he ever probably would have expected there'd be like a billion people following this thing. He'd probably like, what the hell? Like, like he didn't care about that, I don't think, right? Because he didn't leave the Quran to be compiled even before he died.
Yeah.
He didn't tell them what was going to be the outcome of who's going to be the leader after he died. He didn't say that.
He was too busy sleeping with his 11 wives.
It's he's made this is complete dishonesty. And you know what? When you actually study Islam, it all falls apart because it's so human. The whole thing is so human. But anyways, well, it's funny that he said he doesn't want to call it organized religion. That's hilarious. But anyways,
I just want to show this comment quick by Steve C. He said, Mr. or Mrs. Friendly Ex-Muslim, don't feel bad that you fell for this. Feel proud that you were smart enough to get out. What do you think about that?
yeah, thanks for saying that, Steve. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and from I was just thinking when I read this, there's people all of the time, like in my videos, they say, "Oh, I don't know how any woman could fall for this, how you could be so stupid." But I say this all of the time. We all make mistakes, right? And this was my mistake. This is my mistake. I mean, I spent years of my life in this, but it's better late than never, right? So that's why we're here too. We're here to help those. It's never too late.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh,
Oops, sorry.
Chechamus says there's so many interpretations of the Quran. That's true, for crying out loud. There's tafsir that the earths are flat. Yep, well said. And Rebecca is on fire today. The Quran could do with organization, specifically chronologically. It does need organization. Right?
Burn.
Oh my God, it's not organized.
Organize
The word of God, whereas Christianity is the interpretations of the apostles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not an expert on Christianity, but Christians believe that the Holy Spirit inspired the apostles, so they were speaking on behalf of God. It's not the interpretations of the apostles. If I'm saying this wrong, just correct me in the chat. But again, this is a straw man. It's like, yeah, Quran's from God, Christianity's from men. Quran from, like, that's not true. Like, that's not a fair way to represent Christianity at all. At all. But anyways, I really like what David Wood says. And he's like, sometimes Muslims, what they do is they'll like project their own beliefs about the Quran onto the Bible, and they'll say, you see, the Bible's not preserved. But like, Christians don't say that. They don't say it's preserved like the Quran says it's preserved. They don't say that. They don't say it's dot for dot, whatever. Like nowadays, even Muslims don't say dot for dot. But the Quran says it's been preserved and Allah will protect it. And so it's a problem for Muslims. Christians say there's manuscripts that don't match, and they're fine with that, right? They have their own argument that whatever. Like I'm not Christian, and I don't believe in Christianity, and I don't know if I'm convinced the Bible is perfectly preserved or whatever. But it's a projection again. They're projecting what they think about Islam onto Christianity, which is again not what Christianity is about, right?
Yeah.
This is the actual word.
Okay.
That's
Christianity is the interpretation. And
I'm dying hearing this.
exactly. So we believe the Quran is verbatim the word of God, while Christianity is inspired writers writing what they think is the word of God, etc. Right? It's completely.
It's not what they think. If they're inspired, then they're inspired. So that's why Christians think the Bible is the word of God, is because it's inspired by the Holy Spirit. It's not what they think. But with Muslims, it is what they think, because they're doing the best effort at compilation. Uthman did his best effort, and still there was differences with Ibn Masud and the other versions of the Quran. Like they fought, right? They fought over the different variant readings because there were differences and they didn't all agree on it, right? So it's a lie. But anyways, he's talking, all of this is to prove morality is absolute, and he's not doing a good job. But anyways,
different. Now, when you talk about interpretations, to add to that as well, the organized religion part, now the Quran has a criteria specifically. How do you understand the scripture? It doesn't just.
I'm sorry, I had to pause it here. He's nodding, but can't wait to have a thing with his friend. I saw him looking away as well. Like others, like,
what too? Like from like what I'm observing here with the Muslim Lantern, and Ali Dawah does this too. They all do it. When you just talk at somebody, they're gonna eventually kind of disassociate.
Yeah.
Right. And they kind of like they start looking away, or they get like, it's very like mentally taxing to stand there and just have somebody throw all this stuff at you that you've never heard before. You can't challenge, you can't validate nothing. It's you know.
Yeah. Yeah, like yeah, exactly. I don't know if they know enough to challenge. They did challenge it once, which is good.
Yeah,
But the
yeah, they asked
organizer,
some questions, but it's still like I mean, for me personally, like being more like on the introvert side, like it's very just mentally taxing to just have somebody bombard me like this.
And Rebecca, again, with some context, thank you for this. As an ex-Catholic, my community would say the Bible is the inspired word of God, and we accept scribal errors are present. So they, again, Muslims don't seem to get this, and they'll keep projecting onto the Bible something that they don't even believe about the Bible. And it's like you're making up a problem that we don't even think is a problem. Like we don't care. Like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. Continue.
Yep, let's continue.
Just leave us like this. But Christianity, the Bible doesn't have a
Christianity
verse
again.
or a chapter that tells you how you understand the book. There isn't such a thing. People just
Talk
you know,
about
every
Islam. Never
Christian
mind
I talk to
Christianity.
understands something different from the Bible, right? But the Quran,
Every Christian I talk to understands something different from the Bible, but apparently Muslims all believe the Quran exactly. They all interpret the Quran the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, buddy.
I know
and we
that's a
have
big
a
lie.
criteria in the Quran. Allah says if you disagree over anything, you return it to the Quran and the Prophet. We have a prophetic tradition called the Sunnah. Any disagreement you have, interpretation, whatever, you return it to the book. What does the book
But what do you do when the hadith is, first of all, you don't even know half of them are authentic or not. What do you do when Muhammad's dead, so you can't refer to him? Again, more evidence that this was meant to be for people living there. Now that he's gone, how do we validate what the Quran says? We go to the hadith. He says, well, the hadith are all contradicting each other, right?
Yeah.
You have, and you know, there's even variant readings of the Quran where Shias believe that when you do wudu, I can't forget if it's wiping the neck or is wiping the feet, but one of them interprets it as wiping an extra part of the body, the Shias, whereas Sunnis don't do that because of variant readings of the Quran. And the Quran itself says there's parts that are ambiguous and parts that are not clear. And it's like this not at all objective at all. Not only do and even the scholars themselves, the hadith themselves are ambiguous. So you have a hadith. In fact, even during Muhammad's time, they got confused about this. There's a hadith where the companions were told by Muhammad, they were marching or whatever, probably to go fighting some war again. And he's like, don't pray Asr, the middle prayer, until you reach this place. And so they were going, and they're going and going and going, and now they have a problem. The problem is that they're about to run out of time for the prayer. So they conflicted. They're like, what do we do? Muhammad said, don't. Some of them said, well, Muhammad said, pray when you get there. Some of them said, no, but he didn't mean like miss it. So half of them prayed, half of them didn't pray. And so then guess what? They went back to Muhammad and they're like, yo, what happened here? Like, what should we have done? And guess what he said? You were both right.
Oh.
Like, what? It's like, he's like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have said that because now they all having fights over what I said. It's typical of like, sorry, you want to say something?
No, it's just like thinking Muhammad had like 23 years to get his shit together, to get his Quran together, to call up Allah on the phone and get some clarification on things. Nope. He just died, and then, you know, everybody else had to figure out how to, you know, compile the Quran and all of that.
Who was going to be in charge after he died?
Who's going to be in charge? Yeah, he just like, he didn't give a shit. He just died. See ya. That's it.
He got what he wanted. And on top of that, like even in the hadith themselves, there's hadith that say don't pray like a camel. And let me tell you, I went to a class on Islamic, I forget which one was a hadith or something. Oh, I think it was Usul al-Fiqh, maybe. And one of these classes, and this came up about don't pray like a camel. A camel bows down like a certain way. But the teacher was like, camels bow down, like they sit down multiple ways, sometimes bottom first, sometimes front first. So what does that mean? Like, how do you not pray like a camel? Like, even the camel itself does multiple things. So Muslims are like, what do we do? Which way is it? And it's not clear.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go on fatwa sites, you see you might have experienced, I bet you experienced this too, the mass confusion on how to do things as a Muslim. Should I move my fingers? Should I not move my fingers? Do I stand like
I'm
this?
getting like anxiety just talking about this because you just reminded me of a story when when I was married in the masjid I went to, my first marriage, when I went down into sujood, like somebody approached me after I prayed and said I was praying like the way I was bending, I was like a dog or something. It's just, oh my God, it just never ends. You can't do anything right. You can't do anything right. And same thing with like moving your finger, not moving your finger, cover your feet, don't cover your feet. It never ends. It just, oh my God, it's so anxiety inducing. And after a while, I just started to avoid the masjid because you just have all these people that, jump on you to criticize you.
Yeah,
Kind of awful. Oh
that's
my God.
that's what the white Muslim guy was saying in his video.
Yeah. He's actually very truthful about a lot of stuff like that. And I like that because, in converts online, in that space, they do mention it, but it really is pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a comment here, Ani, is there any evidence that Muhammad really existed? I heard someone say there's no historical evidence. I really, really, really doubt he didn't exist. I think that's like a far out like claim, and I wouldn't really. So you're asking the wrong person, first of all. Like, let's be honest, I'm not an academic, right? I'm someone that was formerly Muslim. I live my life as a Muslim. I believe strongly in the values of democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, liberalism, basically. And I believe in this, right? And so this is why I speak about this. I'm not an academic to the level of like being able to like go into and dissect the historical claims. That being said, I would refer you to Sean Anthony, who has a book on Muhammad. It's a really good book. It's very academic. It's a little bit of a heavy read, and I'm convinced he existed. I think there's enough evidence to show from historical sources outside of the Quran as well that there was a man that existed that was called Muhammad, the Arab prophet. People talked about him. People wrote about him. I don't know where Robert Spencer came up with this thing that he never existed. I really do think that's not an academic claim. I'm not an expert, but I honestly think it's a laughable thing to say that he didn't exist, because I'm going to go with the mainstream scholars here. I'm not able to, clearly do that heavy lifting myself without going into the sources, but I'm going to trust the academics that I trust, and the academics that I trust say that he existed. And frankly speaking, the hadith are not reliable. We know that. So it's not that whatever's in the hadith is true. I'm willing to grant that maybe Aisha wasn't 6, right, when she was made, but she was a child. I think that we can generally get information from the hadith and from the Quran that indicate and give us confidence about certain things. And I'm confident, for example, that she was a child from the plethora of hadith about it. Now, that being said, I always say this, that I'm criticizing not the historical Muhammad, but the Islamic Muhammad, or the Sunni Muhammad, the narrative, the Islamic narrative. Like, if you believe in hadith and you accept hadith and Quran, then I'm going to talk to you like I would be talking to what I used to believe. Academics do their own thing that, honestly, Muslims don't care about academics anyways. They don't really care what academics believe or don't believe. They believe in this mythology, right? So we are attacking the mythology head on at face value, right? So that's my answer to that.
So wait 1 second. You said that you might believe that she wasn't 6. Why?
So because the hadith are so questionable and unreliable, it's difficult to, and I think in this case there's like only, I believe the specific narration that says she was 6 has some form of weakness in it. But that being said, there's ample evidence that she was playing with dolls and she was on her swings and this and that. So even if he disregard the actual number, I still do think she was a child. That
Okay,
I think is very clear.
Okay, so she wasn't 6. So it's a matter of what? Like a year? She could be a year older, 2 years older. Like, you don't think her exact age.
I'm not willing to, I don't have that level of confidence that that specific number is 100% right. And I'm willing to grant that even if it's not right, there's enough other evidence to show that she was a child. So I don't get stuck on the number, right? Because some people say, no, that number is not right. That wasn't the case. That hadith has its problems. It's through a single narrator that was known to fabricate or whatever. So I'm like, okay, well, let's forget it. I don't even want to get into that. I don't even know how old she was, but it claims that she was a child in multiple other hadith. So unless you throw out the whole thing, like she's a kid, right?
So guys, just in case you're wondering, we've been together almost 2 years now. So we talk all the time about this stuff. So that's why I'm asking my husband this question right now, because I never heard him say this before. So I wanted him to clarify for not only me, but for all of you guys too. So
Yeah, there's a funny little image here that's Quran Islam has a long article. I'll just show you. Like they have their own way of getting out of it, where they say basically they don't trust the narrator who was the narrator. One second. Where was it? Okay, I don't want to waste too much time on this because I want to get to the video, but they basically do some weird reverse analysis thing where they try to reverse engineer her age based on some other incidents that happened in her life, and basically they somehow come up with 19 years old, which coincidentally is the age of maturity in modern life, right? Just happened to be the exact age that she was. No, I highly doubt that, right? So okay, so I'm gonna just continue with the video because I don't really care about this too much, and we'll continue playing the video.
Say what the Prophet said. Allah tells us the Prophet Muhammad is our example. He will explain the Quran to us. How do we understand it? We have his whole biography. So we look, how did he understand the verses and how did he implement the verses? Then
This is actually a problem if you go by the tafsir, because I was actually taught as a Muslim that you shouldn't go by tafsir necessarily, because tafsir is the interpretation of the people at that time. So now if you're going to go and you're going to lock it down to only what Muhammad believed and how the scholars or the companions interpreted it, you're now locked into a very rigid, and now it's going to be a struggle to stretch it out and make it apply to other times, right?
the Quran tells us not only the Prophet is our example, but his companions as well. Because they learn from him, of course, right? Like the disciples, if you use that term. They learn from him. He taught them how to implement the Quran. So our criteria is this. Any Muslim, he will say to you, I pray 6 times a day. I said, sorry. Quran says, come back to the Quran and Prophet. Prophet told me to pray 5 times a day. The Quran mentions 5 times a prayer. That's it. So this door of interpretation, closed. It's not open. So that's how we make sure we preserve our tradition.
This is actually a huge topic. When he says that the door of interpretation is closed, this is a huge thing, because then what do you do about things that didn't exist? Like Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin permissible? Many scholars say it's not now, so many scholars say it is. Like modern financial contracts, because Islam apparently wants to say something about everything. It wants to talk about finance, and it wants to talk about laws, inheritance, and like divorce. And it's not just the religion, right? The religion is very like it takes over like the actual laws of the society. So then if you're really saying the door of interpretation is closed, that's actually a bad thing. And this is something you find among different Muslims. You have Muslims that believe that, like Salafis, let's call them Salafis, or people that are more rigid, and they very much are close-minded about how Islam is supposed to be practiced. Those people are the minority, because it's very hard to do that. Then you have the majority where they kind of like they're flexible with the Islam, and they're willing to like grant some new things. For example, insurance maybe is halal because we don't have an Islamic state. And so the fact is that he's actually wrong. But if he really truly believes this, Islam is not for modern world, because you can't interpret anything differently, right, than what Muhammad did. Muhammad's context was a 7th century. 21st century is very different, right?
Yeah.
That's why if you look at any religion in the world, compare it to Muslims. Muslims today, Muslims 100 years ago, 500 years ago, they are still doing the same practice, the same exact practices from the past until today.
They're still stoning people too.
They're still stoning people. That's true. Why does this guy keep making jabs at Christianity?
Maybe he's just assuming they're Christians, trying to like put doubts in their minds.
Like, what is this? Yeah.
See like different sects,
You can see
different
their
like
views on
LGBT flags now.
And sects. He's saying Muslim. Yeah. Okay. So Muslims, if you have LGBT flag, I'm sorry to say, you'll get like knocked out for that. Like you will be like killed probably, right? So I'm not saying everyone has to agree with LGBT or whatever, but it's not necessarily like a selling point that it hasn't changed and that it's rigid. Like he's trying to make it sound like this is a good thing. I wonder if what these guys are thinking. I hope they, because like you said, they're being talked to, right?
Yeah.
and in churches, everything has changed. For
There's
example,
some people that follow love thy neighbor and love his law over like different.
Yeah.
Like you must sleep with a woman. Otherwise,
Yeah.
There's different people that.
for example, you mentioned having intercourse outside of marriage. You go to Christians, you ask them, doesn't the Bible say you shouldn't have intercourse outside? They say yes, but 99% of them are having intercourse outside of marriage.
That's 99% of Muslims too.
I know. I know.
What
And you
it-
know what?
Yeah.
Even when they do get married, again, we talked about this yesterday. Islam allows slimy things.
Yeah.
Misyar for wives. That's just as bad.
Yeah.
It's halal cheating,
Yeah.
as we always say.
I mean, like the big elephant in the room, sex slaves, like concubines, I should say, rather than sex slaves. Sex slaves is kind of a little bit of an inaccurate term in this case, but yeah, concubinage. That's bad.
Mhm.
Yep.
So nobody is following the book anymore. Right? The book is there, but it's on the shelf.
Yeah.
Nobody is following the scripture the way it is.
Yeah. So
That's
you're
not
probably
true.
wearing two different threads.
That's not true. He's generalizing all of them, saying nobody. Do you know every single Christian that's out there? I don't think you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't stand that. Like he's saying everybody. Well, no, you don't know everybody, and maybe you should get to know more Christians, especially like the ones we have in our chat here. And you know, there's plenty that follow their faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
that's outdated.
Yeah.
They don't follow that. Whereas Quran is word of law, like the law. Of God.
Yeah. So would you argue that in the Quran there's no outdated or ancient?
Why is that guy
Yeah,
in the blue
Quran
shirt?
It's
He's kind of like his lackey almost. He's like, yeah, the Quran is the law of God. Like, well, dude, didn't you just show up here 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're like buddies or something.
Yeah, like who is he? Is he part of that group?
Maybe. So I want to. Okay, let me rewind it a bit. Hold on a second.
Whereas Quran is word of law, like the law. Of God.
Yeah. So would you argue that in the Quran there's no outdated or ancient?
Yeah, the Quran is revealed, and Allah says in the Quran that He's going to preserve this book.
His question was, would you say in the Quran there's nothing outdated? I would say there's a heck of a lot of things in the Quran that are outdated.
Mhm.
For example, the sacred months. What the like? How does that even matter in today's modern world? The sacred months. We're talking about pre-Islamic Arabs that were trying to make it safe for people to go for Hajj so they can make money on the Hajj. So they made these sacred months so they wouldn't fight, so that people could come and buy the idols or whatever the hell they were doing in Makkah, trade or whatever. There's the whole thing about foster mothers. That's not relevant to 99% of human beings. Like who, like in fact, it's so bad that it actually was used to ban human breast milk. What do you call them? Like not hospitals. Like they had a bank, breast milk bank in Bangladesh was banned because of this rule in Islam that of foster sisters, and you can't basically, I don't know, it's just weird. Like there's also rules of I mean, there's so many things in the Quran that make no sense, like that don't apply. Oh, like sex slavery. How does that make sense today? Like, why do we have slavery talked about in the Quran? Like, do this with your slave and do that with your slave. There's nothing. There's so many things in the Quran and Hadith that are completely outdated, make no sense.
And again, like a better society would be one that abolishes slavery, not encourages it. So, and it's for all of time. So there you go. There's your law.
Yeah, Muslims would argue that Islam encourages freeing slaves and it reduces slavery, but the problem is it still allows it.
It still allows it. Exactly. That doesn't make it any better.
Exactly. Yep.
Allah says we've revealed the scripture and we're going to preserve it. Why is Allah going to preserve it? Because our belief as Muslims is this scripture is valid until the end of times. Which would mean that the Quran gives a very, very important thing, gives a criteria. There are clear foundational verses in the Quran. Clear, explicit, no multiple interpretations. And there are verses that can allow more than one interpretation. Now these verses that can allow more than one interpretation is not in the foundations of the religion, not like the idea of who God is or any of that, right?
I'm laughing because even in the definition of who God is, there's opinions among Muslims. There's Asharis and the Maturidis and the like all these different Asharis, like they interpret the Quran's words differently. Example, Salafis believe Allah has two hands, two right hands, however that works. They take these things literally, that Allah has hands. Now they don't believe it's like hands like human hands. They say he has hands. We just don't know what that like what they look like. It's not like our hands. Whereas, for example, Asharis will say Allah's hands could mean his power or something like that. So even in the foundations and in the beliefs of Allah, even in the foundations of whether, actions are created or free will exists, there's different opinions, right? Like the Aqidah, the beliefs of Muslims
Yeah.
has differences. Like look at Shias and Sunnis, massive differences. And they're all Muslim. Now he might say, that this is among Sunnis this is a problem. Like sorry, he might say, okay, Sunnis don't have differences, but even among Sunnis you have differences on beliefs, right? So anyways, shall we continue?
I think that was what was jarring for me when I first converted, because they preach, it's monotheism. There's one Islam. No, there's not. There's many different madhabs. There's different interpretation. It never ends, and you're always doing everything wrong. So there's not some one unified Islam and way of doing things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why are they there? They're there so scholars can use them when new things arise to come to jurisprudential rulings. You understand? So the Quran is befitting of all times for that reason, because there are verses and there are narrations of the Prophet that we can use today for anything new that would come up, to come with a ruling that Islam, okay, the scripture says this, the scripture says that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is actually bad. This is actually a bad thing, that you have to, the Quran and Sunnah ends up being this anchor that pulls you back into the 7th century, and based on what limited things happened. I mean, it's so absurd. I'll give you an example of like something ridiculous. So I have a ring that's gold ring, my wedding ring. I'm not allowed to wear gold, but guess what? Muslim scholars say you can wear platinum, you can wear titanium, you can wear freaking anything else, but not gold. Why? Because Muhammad said gold is not allowed. How does that make sense? Because apparently that's what he asked about, and therefore it's not. And there's even a hadith that says this is a crazy thing. Muhammad was talking about sex, and he said, I was going to ban you guys from having sex with your wife when pregnant, except that because he thought something like the baby would be born cross-eyed or something weird like that. And then he saw the Romans.
Wait, isn't that based on a weak? Wait, didn't they say that about the Jews? Isn't that some like hadith, weak hadith?
Is pregnant. Hold on one second. I can actually find the actual hadith, because
okay,
it's funny. It's so funny, right? So basically the essence of it was that he was going to forbid. Let me see if I can find it. One second. It's a little bit tricky to find this live. You know what? I might be able to do it quicker on ChatGPT. But basically, the essence of a hadith was that I was going to forbid you from doing this, but then I saw the Romans did it, and their babies are fine. I found it. Okay. So basically, look, I heard the messenger of Allah saying, I wanted to forbid intercourse with a nursing mother, but then I saw the Persians and Romans do this, and it does not kill the children. He thought, like, if you have sex when pregnant, your baby's going to die.
Wow.
And I heard him say this about Quays interruptus. It is a disguised form of building children alive. And the funny thing is, he's saying everything goes back to Quran Sunnah, but like the Prophet isn't like literally an ignoramus that's making up these things. He's even admitting it. That I was.
Well, wait a second. This is a very scientific hadith. I don't think we should. This is extremely scientific. It's better than it's Muhammad's sex ed.
Muhammad's sex ed, yeah. Yeah, Kathleen Howard said when a woman is raped, DNA evidence is meaningless. She needs those 4 male witnesses. That's true as well. This is a problem with Islamic law, is all about witnesses over evidence, right? So, and in fact, we did a video, I don't remember which one it is, where there's a modern academic paper that said that Muslims can't use DNA evidence because it goes against the ethos of Quranic 4 witnesses, right? Or the Sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Quran, we say, it's impossible for you to find anything that's outdated and anything new that can come about, we can come to a ruling for. And I'll give you a very simple example for that.
This sounds so stupid to me as a non-Muslim now. It sounds so absurdly ridiculous and stupid that you think that this one book that was revealed and these actions of this one man is supposed to somehow give you guidance forever and ever for the rest of existence. It makes no sense. Logically, it's completely incoherent to think that. If I was God and I was going to create some sort of guidance, I would have to leave it very vague, because, and very general, like, don't harm others, don't kill, like, don't, you know what I mean, be good to others, treat them like you want them to be treated. Like, you'd have to come up with very generic principles, because if you make it too specific, then you end up like problems like this. And yeah, like, actually, as this hadith literally disproved itself that Muhammad knew what he was like doing, right? Not only knew what he was doing, like, he was giving them bad advice based on what he's seeing in the world. So if Muhammad lived today, according to this hadith, everything would be different. So Muslim scholars should admit that, basically forget the hadith, because it's based on what his flawed understanding. And even me as a Muslim, when I saw this and some of these other things, I was like, okay, maybe for like science stuff, I should not look at Muhammad.
Yeah. You know what? He wasn't thinking about the future.
Uh-huh.
He was thinking that the end was coming soon, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Prophet Muhammad said 1,400 years ago, everything that intoxicates is khamr. Khamr is alcohol, kind of, you can say alcohol, right? Because the Quran says alcohol is impermissible, you cannot have it, it's not allowed, right? So the Prophet said 1,400 years ago that everything that intoxicates is khamr. So everything intoxicates today includes what? All drugs and heroin, all of these things.
Yeah.
So you have this general
He's
rule
smiling.
that affects anything new that will come in the future.
Yeah.
So it's not only the alcohol that you drink.
Yeah.
If you see the only the alcohol, yes. So that's why Islam is timeless, because you have these rules.
To the future, yeah.
Exactly. The Prophet has these rules.
I don't
Allah
think-
has presented these.
We don't need the Quran or Allah or Muhammad or any of these guys to understand that heroin is bad for you.
I have a point to make. I want to see if he says anything else before I say it.
Okay.
rules that are timeless, that will work and will fit the future. Whatever comes about, will be able to deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my recommendation.
That's the end of the point. Okay. I have a question for them. He's saying everything that intoxicates is haram. Who decides what intoxicate means? It's human organized religion, buddy. You said you don't like the word organized religion, but that's exactly what's happening here. Someone has to decide. Heroin, not okay. What's the medical grade heroin called? Or opium? Morphine, right? When you take
I don't know, actually.
Okay, so like in some cases, you are taking something that's similar to a street drug. Opium versus morphine, for example. Opium is street drug. Morphine is like the legit version that people use, but it's also highly addictive. Now, that's a human effort. Second of all, what do you do with things like LSD? What do you do with things like psilocybin, like mushrooms? What do you do with things like I don't know, there's other things too, right? And so there are actual uses for these things. Oh yeah, weed. That was the other example I came up with. I know someone that takes weed for medical reasons. I don't know, like there's benefits to these things that they're not necessary. Is going on a psychedelic trip considered intoxication?
I would think anything that puts that where you can't function like with your normal frame of mind, like you can't drive on shrooms. So I would consider that some form of an intoxicant.
Right. So that's where someone has to make a call. And I think that's my concern with that is, you're throwing out your baby with your bathwater, where there is actual benefits to some of these things. For example, the studying psilocybin in the medical grade, and they're using it for depression, right? So there's actually, they wouldn't call that an intoxicant. If you're taking a pill of psilocybin for your depression and it's been prescribed by a doctor, that's not an intoxicant. I wouldn't call that an intoxicant. I would say that, I mean, in some religions, this is considered like a spiritual journey. When you do like psychedelics or something, you seeing the next life. Like, ancient people, some of them, they used to use these medicines. They used things of them as medicines as a way to communicate with the spirits and whatever. Now, of course, I don't believe that DMT makes you communicate with spirits, but that being said, it's a different type of experience than an intoxication. Khamr, alcohol, Muhammad didn't want them to use it because it made them
Too
like
drunk to fight.
exactly. There's a reason
Yeah.
why he banned alcohol, right? It's not because of and on top of it, like yeah, like Allah is saying Allah, psilocybin is the least toxic recreational drug out there. So, you know, I do think this is stupid again because one, you're using human effort, human judgment to figure out what's an intoxicant. Two is this is just like yes, alcohol is bad for you, but that doesn't mean everything that's intoxicant is bad for you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, intoxicant, toxic. Maybe that's another way to look at it, right? So
when it comes to, that's why I was asking you about how to know right from wrong. If you don't have objective relation from God, you can only have objective morality if it comes from an objective source. The only objective source is God, because God's all-knowing. He created us, He's all-powerful. Then what He says is objective because of that. Our knowledge is limited. We're not sure, don't know the future. We don't understand even our own bodies fully. That's why what we are going to say, the guidance is going to be.
Our knowledge was limited until we had scientists and people discovering, bacteria and all that. Muhammad didn't make any of those discoveries. So yeah, their knowledge was limited back then.
Much more limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be subjective. It's going to be correct sometimes, incorrect sometimes. But from God, it's going to be objectively true and also going to be enforceable for other human beings. You can't just say it's my opinion versus your opinion. No, it's the Creator's command. So without,
it's not the Creator's command, it's the interpretation of the scholars, and they become the gatekeepers of how you live your life. If you go to any Islamic fatwa website, all you'll see is, what do I do if this happens? What do I do if I ate when I was fasting? What happened if I divorced my wife twice? What if I divorce my wife when she's pregnant? Like, you end up becoming a slave to the scholars, and they become the gatekeepers of how you live your life. You basically outsource your thinking in your brain, which normal people would just be like, oh, let me think about how to live my life. No, now you have to think of what would Muhammad do? What would Muhammad think of this? And so you basically are losing brain cells. Like they say now, AI makes you lose brain cells because you're not thinking. That's what Islam does too. It makes you not think because you have to, and you're not allowed to come up with your own opinions on Islam. You have to depend on what the scholars say. So what that means is you become a blind follower of someone else, and you lose that power and that dignity, because now you're not allowed to make your own opinions. You're not allowed to interpret these things by yourself, right?
You know what? That's why, these scholars, like Omar Suleiman, all these guys, even that Asim Al-Hakim guy. Yeah. I mean, they actually need to do what they do because they need people to be dependent on them.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like a dependency in this religion on a human being.
Yeah. Nostalgia says, Abdullah, are you calling Muslims stupid? No, I'm not calling Muslims stupid. Muslims, they're very bright. There's stupid Muslims out there, but there's also smart Muslims out there, and there's a wide range among any population. You're gonna find a bell curve. There's like a majority would be in the middle. I do think the system of Islam limits the potential of Muslims to live to the unlimited potential. I think that is a problem, especially Muslim women, especially in countries that follow Islam more closely. There's a lot bigger loss, and especially Muslims like me that are were following Islam much more closely, sacrificed more for Islam, gave up mortgages and houses and putting the kids in Islamic school and or whatever, not putting the kids in public school. I gave up a lot for Islam. So depending on how religious you are, I'm not at all saying anyone that follows any religion is dumb or anything like that. I do think that there's a bit of intellectual bravery that and basically bravery in general that needs to be taken in order to leave a religion behind, because there's a sunk cost fallacy. When you lived your whole life a certain way, you've been brainwashed maybe as a child that this is the right way. It's hard to escape out of that, right? Like when a rocket, to escape the Earth's gravity, it needs a massive amount of fuel. So you may be the brightest, most intelligent, highest IQ holder in the world, but you don't have the guts to challenge those deeply held beliefs, because all of our beliefs are a mix of rational and emotional. And the emotional part is not a bad thing, but it can hold you back if you're not able to really like think about it objectively, right? It can be something that holds you back. So no, I don't think Muslims are dummies, but I do think they're wrong. So yeah.
That was
Anything?
beautifully said.
Thank you. Nostalgia says very many smart ladies in Saudi, they're brilliant. I'm proud of them. My best friends are Muslims, and some accept me as atheist, some don't. Yeah, that's. Do I read chat messages? I do read chat messages sometimes, and I pay attention to the video sometimes. We try to multitask. That's one of the skills you need. But
Yeah,
I do pay attention, especially if it's a super chat, because I am very grateful for financial support there. But the other chats I try to read as well.
I do read the chats as well, and I've been kind of keeping a close eye on this chat. And I just wanted to ask American Amy. She said she has not decided whether she will pursue God or not. Are you referring to me? I was just looking to see what this conversation was about in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is American Amy. If this is the atheist channel, I need to get off here, and the Patreon. Yeah, we do appreciate your support, but the channel, like, I'm atheist. Huda she calls herself non-religious, so I guess agnostic or whatever. Definitely not a believer in any organized religion of any sort whatsoever. That being said, I mainly talk about Islam. So, you know what I mean? It's up to you. You're most welcome to, like, I don't know if someone said something to you in the chat that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to look for. And also, I would never call this an atheist channel. And actually, I mean, I don't share those same beliefs as my husband, which is fine, right? We still love each other and get along just great. But yeah, a lot of times I get accused in the comments of, not accused, or people assume I'm an atheist, maybe because my husband is, but I'm not an atheist by any means. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty open-minded.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I actually
yeah, so hopefully no one was mean to you or something. Yeah, definitely allowed to. One of the things I do have as one of the community, I haven't written out the community guidelines. I should probably formally do it. The chat, everyone's welcome to free speech, even Muslims. The only thing that's not allowed is if you become hateful. And actually today, I think, Huda, you banned someone.
Yes, I did, because okay, I don't even mind Muslims in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't mind, but when you start saying like degrading things or calling us names or swearing or spamming, okay, you got to go. But yeah, we're all. American Amy says, I thought we were free to have discussions here. Yes, you are. You are free to have a discussion.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
You always contribute meaningfully too. So yeah, please don't leave us.
All right, we'll continue.
Yeah.
That you'll be confused. That's why, you look at the England, for example, 1960s or before that, they used to bring gay people and hang them there in Marble Arch. They were there in the streets. Now today, if you criticize them, you can go to prison in some cases, right? Yeah. So it's a complete flip of morality. Why?
I don't think capital punishment is the answer here, dude.
He's trying to say, I'm going to divine that, because that was kind of,
that's crazy,
not great.
People and hang them there in Marble, England, for example, 1960s or before that, they used to bring gay people and hang them there.
Honestly, it sounds like he wants to hang gay people. Like, that's what he's saying.
He quite literally said that.
Yeah. He's like, I mean, he didn't say I want to do that, but he's like, what the hell? They used to hang gay people. Now the morality is completely flipped. This part of the video is kind of nuts, because I don't know what they're thinking, but if I was them, I'd be like backing off slowly, like, bro, like, you want to like actually hang gay people? Like, that's your morality?
Again, he doesn't know these people. One of them might be gay, so whatever, or they might have gay family members, or you probably shouldn't go for the jugular like that.
Yeah, exactly. This is awful.
In Marble Arch, they were there in the streets. Now today, if you criticize them, you can go to prison in some cases, right? Yeah. So it's a complete flip of morality. Why? Because morality is fluctuating relative. There isn't a standard for it. Now, when it comes to God, if we follow the commands of God, no, the commands of God are static. Now, if we know right and wrong, then we can be tested. So God's test for us is, are we going to do the good that God has commanded us and avoid Satan? Or
there's some like screaming in the background. Everyone's like, what the heck?
That's our cue to leave.
2 more minutes. We're gonna get through this.
or we're going to follow our own desires and we disobey God. So that's the test of this life. And being a Muslim, what Muslim means submission. A Muslim is a submitter. Islam is submission to God. So are you going to submit to God and follow the command and revelation He's given to you and obey Him and do good? Or are you going to say, okay, I'm going to live my life? Okay, you can live your life, but you're going to die. I'm going to die. You cannot escape death. That's what the Quran.
Especially if you're gay and you're Muslim. Sorry, gay and you're living under Islam. You can't escape death. They'll actually do it for you.
Yeah.
Says, say that death that you're escaping from is going to meet you. You're not going to run away anywhere. Say two things which are certain: taxes and death. Right? There's a saying that they make. Right? You cannot escape death. And if you cannot escape death, then I need to be sure what I'm doing in this life. I need to think ahead. I need to be smart. You make money. You think about the next month's bill, next year's bill. You don't think just about today. I'm going to spend all the money I have, and I think about the bill later on. You also need to think about what will happen after you leave this life. If the information is truly from God, then my behavior in this life should reflect what that means, right? I need to obey, need to do as much good as I can. By the way, Islam doesn't mean, become a monk and go to this desert somewhere and leave everything. No, we live our life easily. We eat, we drink. Yeah, we eat, we drink, enjoy our time, we do all of these things, but at the same time, we believe in God and we do the things that we connect with God,
okay
we obey the Creator. But in the same time, you live your life, right? Islam doesn't say do everything is wrong.
You know what? We should juxtapose this versus the white Muslim guy saying everything is haram. I became Muslim. They're telling me I can't pray, I can't have tattoos, I can't wear shorts. My shorts are not long enough. I'm like doing this prayer wrong, and people actually told that even the whole his business was haram. Oh man, yeah.
Wrong, everything is not allowed. No,
everything is
Islam
not
is
allowed.
A very balanced religion, unlike other religions, right?
No, it's not.
So I would recommend you guys read more into it, and if it makes sense, welcome to become Muslim anytime.
After all that, you're welcome to become Muslim.
Crazy,
If you're gay, we're gonna hang you.
All of them are not Muhammad. It's just me.
Okay, so
it's nice to meet you guys. See you guys. Bye bye.
That was the interesting thing was they didn't have anything else to say to him. They didn't they were just like, yeah, you're done. I think they just wanted to leave the whole time. They were just standing there. And then it was like, bye. They're like, okay, we're going. We're done with this lecture, right? Yeah. Okay, so Muslim guys saying, why do you need tattoos? Well, what's wrong with tattoos? Especially if you already have tattoos, what you wanted people to spend all this money to remove them?
People that talk like this, the Muslims, you're literally just confirming what I have been saying all along about how judgmental you guys can be, because the white Muslim guy, he has tattoos. I think people have complained to him about his tattoos as well. So, I mean, if you guys want to represent your community, in the best light, you should probably avoid confirming the things that we say are happening, the way you guys treat people.
Yeah. Daniel's like, finally, alcohol time, boys. They're probably gonna go and laugh about this guy. And it looks like that guy's with them, the blue guy. He's leaving with them. So I don't know if he's the plant. That's I don't know. Maybe he's the one that dragged them. He's a convert or something. You never know, right? You never know who's a convert today.
Here's a question as old as time. Huda, why don't you show your face? Okay, do you want to know the answer? You want to know the deep reasons, the philosophical, I've reflected on this over and over. I'm going to give you the answer finally. I'm going to give you the answer because I don't want to. That's quite literally it. Yeah. That's quite literally it. I don't even own a whiteboard. I just don't want to. And maybe one day I will, but I just don't want to right now. So yeah, that's the answer to that.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about prophecies, so we gotta end off in the next 10 minutes anyways. But there's so many prophecies that are wrong. Maybe I can actually bring up some of them. I have a couple that I've talked about in the past that, since we're talking about this whole thing, it might be a good idea to talk about prophecies. I mean, there's so many wrong prophecies, right? And let's get okay. So I actually have an article I wrote on this at one point, which I will share my screen with. And let me zoom in a bit. Okay, so to start off with, something that's very important for people to note is whenever you make a prophecy, if it's not time bound and specific, it's useless. There will come a time when people will have much corruption and trust will be taken. Like, that doesn't mean shit. Like, anybody can say that. That's not impressive, because there's an unlimited amount of time between when Muhammad said this and like things happening. So things will happen that fit. But what would be impressive is if he said a specific prophecy, right? And anyways, I just gave some examples like, oh, day of judgment will not arrive until the people take women as leaders. And then there's like, now in the modern world, we have women as leaders. Like, you see, he was right. He said it's going to happen, right? The skies. Anyways, so these are some examples of unfalsifiable statements. Like, you can never prove these wrong because they're just vague, generic things, right? By the way, Huda, feel free to interrupt me at any point.
No, that's true. I think I remember you saying this in your past videos before we met and all that. But I remember you saying if Prophet Muhammad was a true prophet, his prophecies would be very, very specific, not vague and ambiguous. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, the Texas sharpshooter fallacy is another good example, and the reason I like these fallacies is because they help you to understand. Like I've said this many, many, many times before, guys. Philosophy helps you to understand statements, arguments, and to debunk claims, right? Very easily. So a sharpshooter fallacy basically is that when you shoot an arrow into like a barn or something, and then you go there and you paint around it, say, look, I hit the target. That's what Muslims do sometimes, right? With these prophecies, they'll go and they'll basically look for something that fits and be like, oh, look, this is what the prophecy says. The prophecy doesn't say that. You made it connected to that because that's what you wanted to prove. Okay. So let's talk about some of these hadith. Shepherds will build tall buildings. So when you see the barefoot, naked, destitute shepherds competing in constructing tall buildings, this is a famous hadith. Muslims try to say that, look, Burj Khalifa is a testament to the prophecy of Muhammad, but like, look at the specifics. They're not barefoot, they're not naked, they're not destitute, and they're not shepherds. What exactly? And by the way, who built the tower? It was built by an American team. Like, they paid Americans to do this. So did Muhammad say that? Like, if I was a true prophet, I should have included some details that would have matched, right? But then again, he didn't care about the future. He was just making up things as he went along, right? Okay. So the other one is moving the goalpost. Yeah, in the chat, someone mentioned that as well. That also happens. Okay, rain will destroy all homes except tents. This is a good example for Muslim lantern when he talks about how the Quran is not specific, and the Hadith is not specific to his. It's very like it's some of these prophecies are idiotic because they talk about swords and shields and like tents and shepherds. Like one of the Hadith says that near the day of judgment, Muslims will drink wine, wear silk, and use intoxicants. And a shepherd will come on the side of the mountain. Like, what is this like shepherd? Like, who the hell is a shepherd nowadays? Like, are these guys? It's maybe in Afghanistan, right? For maybe like 1% of the Muslim population or something. But this one says, "I will not come until there's been rain, which will destroy all dwellings except tents." That's not happening. That's not going to happen. We don't live in tents, guys. Like,
maybe they were referring to like mud houses. Like rain would destroy maybe like a mud house, but not a tent.
Mom was like, you see, the tents are superior to the mud houses. This one, they love this one. They freaking love this. When the slave woman gives birth to a mistress, what does that even freaking mean? Like, that's impressive to you? Women will increase. Oh, I love this one. Women will increase 50-fold versus men. Not because I love women, but it's hilarious. It's hilariously wrong. I mean, I can look this up right now on Google or ChatGPT that there's no way we're not even close to a 50-fold increase in men versus women.
But again, women are like painted as awful. There's gonna be more of us. There's gonna be more of us to deal with.
That's why Muhammad said this, because he doesn't like women. It's gonna be awful. It's gonna be too many women. there's actually slightly more men than women. I mean, if you look at wars, Muhammad probably was thinking, okay, like back then especially, wars are mainly fought by men, and lots of men die in wars, and there's lots of women left behind, and that's kind of like the situation. He's like projecting forward, this is what's going to happen. I mean, this is idiotic. 50-1. Like, no, it's not like that at all. Not even close, right? I mean, in some societies, they practice female infanticide, and so you have not enough women. That's actually the opposite of what Muhammad predicted. In China, in India, in many of these societies, they bury their daughters, and so you have the opposite effect where you have one woman, and like she's like in China, she'll get like kidnapped as a bride because they don't have enough brides, right? Like, so again, where is he getting this from?
But didn't Muhammad talk about don't kill your daughters or
Mhm.
don't kill, so why does he have a problem now with women being around?
Yeah, I don't know if he has a problem with women being around, or if he's just
I'm just
saying
kind
this
of joking, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, again, like this guy, I was saying, you show me one prophecy, I can show you like 100 prophecies. Come on. And you know, the funny thing is, sometimes people will say things like, how come you guys, or you specifically, how come you end up with so many problems with Islam? When you're a Muslim, you didn't have any problems. Well, when you look into it, you find all these problems. The more you look into Islam, the worse the problems get. They get more and more and more. So that's basically why, right?
Right.
This is so funny. If people stop paying zakat, the rain will stop falling.
Oh wow.
That, yo, Muslim lantern, you said the Quran knows about the rain clouds. Like, what about this? Like, what about this? Oh man. Okay, this one I actually put a screenshot. The hour will not be established until religious knowledge will be taken away. Earthquakes will be very frequent. Time will pass quickly. Afflictions will blah 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 blah. It's like, again, like generic nonsense.
It's very generic.
Yeah.
That could mean anything at any point in time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what does that even mean? Again, it's unfalsifiable. If your prophecy is unfalsifiable, then it's not impressive. Let's just say that. It's not falsifiable, meaning it can't be proven true or false. So it's like whatever. Like this is just basic philosophy, guys. If you study it, you'll see through all of these problems. Okay. Wealth will increase and no one will want charity. I will not come till wealth increases so much that a wealthy man will be worried lest no one will accept his sadaqah. Again, didn't happen. Not gonna happen. Oh, I love this one. Women of some ancient.
What did it say? People are so quite happy to get charity.
Yeah, I wrote that.
People are so quite happy to get charity, Bobby.
Bobby responds is gifting. Yeah. Next one. Women of some ancient tribe will go around an ancient idol. Allah's messenger said, the hour will not be established till the buttocks of the women of the tribe of Daus move around while going around Bil Khisa. That was the idol of the tribe. So they were doing the little tawaf around the idol, just like the Muslims do around the Kaaba. It's so funny how it says it to the buttocks of the women. Like, this is like the, I don't know if this is after Zut or after before, but he's getting some ideas here.
After Zut.
Yeah, instead of pre-Makkah and post-Makkah, it's like pre-Zut and post-Zut. This is actually funny because there's no idol of, like, what is this? What idol is this? Like, the hour is not going to be established till this idol is, like, Muhammad had no clue what was going on. Yeah, he literally didn't. This is actually more fun than going through that guy's video.
He was just thinking about somebody's ass, I guess. And he's like, oh, let's put this in there.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. Yeah, I mean, I can explain whatever. Right? This is another funny one. I didn't really go into much detail here because I have a whole article on it. But the Quran says that the Jews worship the son of God, Uzair, Ezra. That is like something that is not happening that's never happened. It didn't happen. I don't know where he got that information from. It's completely irrelevant because it's just not true. Mm-hmm. That's in the Quran. Yeah. False prophecy. It's not even a prophecy, but it's just a false statement in the Quran. I just wanted to include that in there because Allah seems to not seem to understand these things. The sun will rise from the place of sunset. Okay, again, this is like a funny one because sometimes you'll see Muslims. I didn't actually talk about this. Oh, I did talk about this a little bit, but not enough. Actually, I think after I wrote this article, I saw some people making this claim online that there's this thing that's going to happen, which is a flipping, and the flipping is the flipping of the what is it? The magnetic poles. It's going to happen like in 100,000 years or something like that. So they're trying to say this is what it means. We're all going to be dead by then. Like, trying to connect this to science is just idiotic because there's no connection, right? You know what I mean? This is like a Texas sharpshooter fallacy, but they're like, you see, this is what's going to happen. You're like connecting it to something that's not meant to be connected to. Okay.
Okay.
Lots of killing will happen. Guys, he called it. Lots of killing.
Oh, that's so specific. Lots. Not a number, not a place, time. It's just lots.
It's lots of killing.
It's just lots.
Yeah.
Lots. Like, what's lots to Muhammad, I guess? I don't know. Is 800 Banu Qurayza lots? Like,
Yeah.
what's a lot?
Yeah, I guess he fulfilled his own prophecy there by doing that. All right. So, yeah, this is actually interesting. I'm very positive. Like, I'm very optimistic here. I'm like quoting that, you know, the number of people being killed in war is actually going down. I hope that's still true. When I wrote this, that was it. That was the end of the article. So yeah, that's the end of the article. And we are. Oh, please give the link that you're reading from. Sure. The link, guys, if you want these links to some of these things, are on my blog, friendlyexmuslim.com. This article is one of the articles linked from friendlyexmuslim.com. I linked it as well, but it's on the blog. So everything is linked there. Just search for prophecies and you'll find this. There's honestly so many. I have a feeling that you could probably go on ChatGPT and ask it, right? And it would come up with other examples as well. And so there's so many examples. I don't know what Muslims are going to do now that intelligence has been outsourced now. And I think what they're going to have to do is come up with more counter like apologetics, because that'll feed the AIs. And so they're going to have to come up with more articles to make the AI say what they wanted to say.
Well, don't they
Right?
have like an AI shake? Remember we were looking at that?
Yeah.
We saw something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We did see that as well. Okay, just gonna read some comments. By the way, I sub this channel, looks respectful and chill. I'm Christian, but I hate how Muslim Christians debates always get super toxic, full of ego, screaming, insulting. Yeah, if you want to debunk something, do it gently without insulting. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining. Yeah, guys, if you're new here, do subscribe. We would really appreciate it. We're working hard on the channel, and we'd love to have you join us on more regularly. So, would you like to add anything, Huda?
Yeah, I put the mention to like and subscribe in here. And as far as insulting, I hope that you didn't think we were insulting, because we do kind of poke fun at stuff from time to time. I like to use humor to you'll see in my videos, I have a whole playlist on our channel. I've been helping my husband a lot with content creation. And I have another one that's going to be coming in a few days that I worked very hard on. It's a reaction video. I think you guys are going to really like it. So stay tuned for that. But yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that's it, folks. Just to end off, leave Islam behind. Life is better and more beautiful without it. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.